Familiar.
Uh-huh.
What's your name?
My name is Dorothy. What is your name?
Simone.
Oh.
What do you do?
Well, I'm part of a YouTube channel called Two Ancient
Semi-Enlightened
Semi-Enlightened Broads
Schmooze
on Life
and
and Beyond. That's
It's
us.
damn good too.
So Simone,
Yes.
yeah, can you tell me a little bit about your background and a little bit about who you are?
Oh. Well, let's see. I grew up in New York, in upstate New York, like you. We both grew up in Syracuse for a period of time. Then I went to New York City, where it was vastly crazy for me, a very crazy time. And then I came out here as a hippie in the 60s and had a commune. And then I went into, I went into reading tarot, because my first husband was really mystical, and he opened that up for me. And then I went into, I was in advertising, I'm on an advertising agency, and I was a journalist and all that.
That got you to where you are today?
No,
Oh,
no, in fact, what got me there was Kuan Yin, and meeting Kuan Yin under the ocean, and her giving me her
I remember
transmission.
that story.
Yeah.
And with all of these things, it brought you to this period of time
Yeah.
when you have created some cards.
I have created a book in cards.
Have you?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's called The Goddess in Your Mirror. Oracle and cards and playbook, and it began as a total inspiration. I was working online, and I went to my friend Gary Markowitz's online deal, and I fell in love with the goddesses. They had that page, and because they were not like Athena, Gaia, these far away, distant females. They looked neurotic. They looked healthy. They looked exhausted. They looked filled with chi. They looked hopeful, and they looked meaningful.
Mhm.
So I just started, I said, Gary, I feel like I can talk for these. I want to talk. And he said, well, go ahead and talk. And so for 6 months, 8 months probably, he brought his cards to the center, meaning he refurbished them, and not as cards, as paintings. They're huge paintings of goddesses. And I wrote their stories. And I wrote their stories from all the women that I've worked with for 40 years. So everybody that I've ever worked with is basically in these cards, from the goddess of bunions, to the goddess of the braless, to the goddess of purpose, to the more mystical goddesses.
And I love the deck.
Oh, good, I'm so glad.
Yeah, I love the
It'd be
deck.
bad if you didn't like it,
Well, but you've been doing this kind of work for a very long time.
Yes, I have.
But to me, this is like bringing a lot of things to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to celebrate 40 years working as a channel, a hypnotherapist, and a writer. And so I wanted to give something so people could hold on to themselves by looking at the cards and then looking into a mirror and finding those aspects of themselves, because we're all holding every aspect there is of femininity within us, but often we can't get to them. So I wanted to give them a way to get to these aspects that are fun and poignant and powerful, and it's a little scary sometimes.
So could you just hold up one or two of the cards?
Sure. Well, this is number 41. These are the goddesses of purses, and as you can see, they're quite quirky looking and interesting.
They are
and
very quirky.
bohemian looking beings. This is oftentimes we're lugging around these bags. In my case, I wear a little tiny thing because I can't stand the lugging bit, but we carry our lives in these bags.
You should see my bag.
I've seen it. It could hold a bowling ball and then some. So I think, this card is asking you to look at what you're willing to carry in your life. Mm-hmm. And suppose all of a sudden it shifted and you could only take one thing in that purse. What would you take with you?
Well, that's really a good question.
And what could you possibly release today? What could you leave behind? Because there are whistles in purses, there are medications in purses, there's, everything you can imagine we put in our purse. Sometimes there are diaper bags in there. It's just, These things are like our life story, or in our purses, and how we feel about ourselves. Sometimes there's a lot of makeup. You know, it just depends on who you are and what you're willing to carry.
Yeah, and Gary Markowitz is the artist for all of these?
Yes, he does
He does magnificent
I know,
work.
he's really powerful. I bought 2 of his paintings in Maui in the late 90s. And one is on the Akashic Records, and there is a goddess of Akashic Records in this group. There's 65 goddesses in this group. And Kunda, the lead goddess, which I don't have a picture this size of. These cards are not this size, by the way. These are blown up, but I'll show them to you. Kunda, the 0 card, is all about manifesting, coming into who you are. And but these young women, some are young, some are not so young. They just are here with their purses, and they say, "This is who I am. It's in the bag. It's in the bag." Yeah.
And so you've been doing this kind of work for quite some time.
40 years.
How old are you? No.
I'm ancient, baby.
No,
Ancient.
don't tell. and working with Gary, something called you to create these cards.
Well, I mean, I think all the stuff that was going on with Kamala Harris and all the stuff that led up to that, and women wanting to rise up, and it was very important to me when we were doing these cards that there was a veiled woman, that there was a Native American woman, that there was a black woman, that there were, you know, as many different varieties of us as there are. And I've always felt like it's really important to include everybody.
Yeah.
You've got to include everybody. Because we get scared, we categorize, and we put people in different categories. I don't like any of that. So these cards are really saying, no, we're all the same woman. We're all the same. We have the same wants and needs, and we have the same hidden aspects. And by the way, this deck, and I'll show you the size of the deck here, and the playbook that goes with it that teaches you how to use these cards, they're about this size, like this. They're quite beautiful.
They are.
And they're all gilded edged, I should say. I'm really proud of them, and Gary just did a great job designing them, and you really can't see them from here, so I'm not going to do that. But anyway, and it's a 100-page book that tells you how to work these cards. You can look at yourself through a mirror until you find this aspect of yourself, or you can use your own inner mirror by closing your eyes and calling this part of yourself to yourself, like the inner child.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's even a goddess of PTSD. These are all women I have worked with and wanted to see them fly. I wanted to see them get out of their prison cells of the mind. That's what this deck is really about.
And that's the great thing about the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we said, we're living mirrors. That's all we are. We're just reflecting ourselves out into the world all the time. And so who do you want to reflect? What do you want to reflect, right?
Consciously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're very excited about this.
I'm very excited.
I can say that I'm fortunate to have a deck, and I've worked with it several times, and I really love the answers that I'm getting. Tell me just a little bit, for the sake of the viewer, what is an oracle deck? What's it for?
An oracle is a voice. It's an ancient voice that speaks to all the different elements of your life. And so it's like having a guide or a teacher in front of you talking to you. And in this case, I was just letting it come through me. I don't consider I wrote the deck. It wrote me. And it called me to it. So it's got a very mystical aspect to it, like these goddesses, all these goddesses do, even though they're very everyday. They have that mystical aspect.
But if someone were watching this and they had no idea what an oracle deck is, or they had no idea about tarot or something like that, how would you explain it from that point of view?
Well, each one of these cards is an embodiment or a feeling of what we go through. And they're to be used, you choose one card each day or one for the week, and you read what this goddess is in you, who she is, and how to find her. And then if you have a problem with it, like I don't want to find that, like the goddess of bunions. And people go, well, why would I want to choose that? Because life is filled with bunions. There are challenges all the time. And this teaches you how to meet, how to meet those bunions, how to meet those challenges.
And how to walk
Yeah, and how to walk
comfortably.
through them. And then there's an invocation with each goddess that you
Exactly.
can chant to yourself, which is very empowering.
And I love the invocations.
Oh, good. I'm really glad you do. I did too. They
Mhm.
just flew through me.
It's almost like you were channeling the whole thing.
I did. Yeah,
Wow.
I did. I don't know where it came from.
Kuan Yin.
And Tara and Gaia and all of them, but mainly I think I was channeling from every person I've ever worked with. You know, my mother's in there, your mother's in there, Vera.
No, that's my grandmother.
Oh, that's your grandmother.
That was your grandmother too.
Yes. Isn't that weird? We're both from upstate New York. We both have Veras as grandmothers. Oh, well. What can I say? Just more of Dorothy and Simone.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming in today and letting me interview you.
Oh, well, I want to thank you too. I'm sorry my voice is...
Oh, your voice is absolutely perfect.
Well, it's so filled with emotion. It's a very emotional time for me to bring these out into the world. I feel like I'm birthing my babies, which I am.
Which you are.
Yeah,
Right.
and
And so many.
65 babies, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
I can do it. I know I can. And I hope everybody enjoys this project, this process. It's something you work. You work it inside of yourself.
I like that.
You know, it's important to come through this lifetime and get your work done.
Yeah, and know who you're reflecting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what we talked about smiling, what a difference it makes. We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that at another time.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Thank you, one of two.
Oh, thank you.